Hi guys, and welcome to this week's vlog. This week we're going to talk about some social issues that are impacting the Mars industry, and so how those issues maybe affect Mars. So first of all what they are, and then how they affect the Mars industry. First one of them being GDP, why it's relevant to Mars and how it is misinterpreted a little bit. Then we're going to talk about corporate social responsibility and why that's really important for marketers moving forward. Then we're going to touch on sustainability as well and how that's affecting the Mars industry. And then we're going to come up with a topic or have a brief discussion about a topic that I've come up with, which is consumer social responsibility. So first of all, GDP. So GDP is gross domestic profit. What does that actually mean? Well, it's usually defined as the total value of all goods and services produced by a company in a given year, equal to the total consumer investment and everything which has been put in terms of value of exports and also the value of imports. So why is that relevant to marketers? Well, it's really a measure of like how well marketing is doing, or how well it's actually needed. And one thing it doesn't really touch on though is, happiness. It doesn't touch on the welfare of people. It is really only measuring certain statistics. I mean, the person who actually originally came up with this measure never intended for it to be used as a measure for a country's wealth anyway. Simon Kunitz never actually intended for that to be used as a measure of social well-being. So it was always only meant to measure certain statistics rather than actually the well-being of people. And that's really where, as marketers, we need to be aware of, if we're marketing a certain product, it's not necessarily going to be a true indication whether the GDP is telling us what's happening in the market or not. So the next thing we're going to talk about is corporate social responsibility. And what does that actually mean? Well, it's something that businesses should really be adhering to. It's something which they should think, they should behave, and they also should be involved. And what that really means is that they need to be thinking beyond making money, paying attention to the social and environment issues. And when they mean behave, well, it's behaving in an ethical manner. So demonstrate that they actually know what's happening within their business. Like, what is the real cost of what they're actually doing? Are there any sort of ethical concerns around their business practices? And being involved is not just taking where they get the resources from or where they get certain crops. Or example, coffee manufacturers should really know where those coffee beans are coming from. They shouldn't just take it for granted that those coffee beans have just come from a correct place where there's the right kind of manufacturing happen. I mean, a perfect example of this would be that the production of oil is probably not sustainable and it's harming our environment. There's also other negatives in terms of the cost that it actually gives against all of the people surrounding the plants that actually are involved, or the mines. And so as being socially sustainable or enacting corporate social responsibility, does that mean that we are going to look after our resources for future generations? New Zealand enacted a quota system for their fish for the last couple of decades. I mean, effectively, sustainability is really all about the triple bottom line responsibility, with the implication that anything that a business does needs to not only look at are the profits going to make the business sustainable, but at the same time, is it going to take into account the environment as well as the social impact? And I mean, in places like New Zealand, sometimes you need a regulating body to make sure that businesses don't overstep the line. But more and more these days, we're seeing businesses who are actually taking social responsibility on board. I mean, it's now something which consumers are looking towards as a tick of approval. I mean, fair trade, for example. So that ties in nicely, talking about fair trade, with what I call consumer social responsibility. So it's all very well all of these companies having the responsibility put on them, but as consumers, do we know where our goods are coming from? Do we care? What kind of responsibility do you take on as a consumer? I mean, how much is who has made the clothes that you're wearing? Are they the same clothes as are they made by people just as old as your kids? These are the questions that we need to be asking ourselves. I mean, every time I love to have a latte every time in the morning. I'm recording off a computer at the moment, which shamefully I have no idea who has made this computer, and realistically could be people in very, very poor working conditions. And I guess that's the dilemma of the West, is that we're slowly waking up and actually realizing, oh, there are some big ethical questions about the lifestyle that we live, and as consumers, whether or not how fast we're waking up to them is the real question that marketers are going to have to assess. So one of the real issues with sustainability is it effectively tells us that we should be using less, we should be more aware of what we're using, and paying a more fair price. More and more people don't think that like consumers are actually really going to worry about paying a fair price. That most people are good and they believe that they should be paying a fair price for a fair product. But consuming less, especially with the middle class which is being created in this modern day with finance being available, means effectively it's a process of demarketing where products and services have been reduced, and marketers are still having to come up with a way of meeting the people's needs. And I guess it's probably a changing role in how marketers are going. So we're going from purely the products are laid on the shelf and we are marketing those products, whereas we're now involved in the storytelling behind a product being marketed to the world. Advertisers, retail salespeople, and so we're now we can either partner with the firms who are still not building commercially, corporate social responsibility, or we can go with people who are being socially sustainable and be part of that storytelling process. It's an education piece. We can use marketing in a way where we can say, look, these are the reasons why you are actually paying this premium price, and this is the benefit that it gives. And it's a really good story to be able to tell to people. It's a change of career where you're not just known as marketing people. Maybe in 10 years, marketers will be some of the people that helped change people's psyche, helped encourage this move towards being sustainable, not just in terms of economically, but also to the world. Hey, thanks guys. It's been a really good vlog, and I'll